Hello and welcome to the English martial arts. In this episode, we're going to look at the English Backsword. The English basket-hilted backsword is an iconic weapon in history of English martial arts, with a rich history in both civilian and military contexts. Let's break down its history, evolution, and use in both combat and war. The history of the English basket-hilted backsword. The origins. The backsword is a type of single-edged sword that dates back to the late medieval period, but it evolved significantly during the 16th and 17th centuries. Unlike the traditional double-edged longsword, the backsword typically had only one cutting edge, and the back, opposite the side of the edge, was flat or slightly beveled. The basket hilt is a distinctive feature that appeared around the early 17th century. It was designed to protect the hand and provide additional control over the weapon during combat. The basket encircled the hand, often with a wide metal guard that covered the knuckles and wrist, which was especially useful when engaging in close combat or when the sword was in a tight, confined spaces, as it acted as a metal boxing glove. The combination of a single-edged blade and a basket hilt became popular in the English-speaking world as it provided greater protection to the user's hand, and the sword's balance made it suitable for quick, powerful strikes. Evolution. The basket-hilted backsword began to take shape in the late 16th century and gained particular popularity in England, Scotland and Ireland. This design drew inspiration from earlier arming swords and broadswords. By the 17th century, the basket-hilted backsword became a primary weapon for both civilian defence and military use. It was particularly favoured during the English Civil War, 1642 to 1651. Now, the English backsword was different to the ones used by the Scottish Highlanders, as they had a double-edged blade. Design. The typical English basket-hilted backsword had a blade of around 30 to 36 inches in length, with a single cutting edge and a flat or slightly convex back. The basket hilt often extended around the hand, featuring crossbars, side guards, and sometimes a knuckle guard. The basket hilt served both practical and aesthetic purpose. Not only did it provide a high level of hand protection, but it also offered the ability to attack with the guard. But the complex sculpted basket could also serve as a symbol of status, often intricately decorated for higher-ranking individuals. The use of the basket-hilted backsword in civilian combat. Self-defense. In civilian contexts, the basket-hilted backsword was a practical weapon for self-defense, given its cutting edge and the hand protection provided by the basket. It was suitable for quick, decisive strikes in a close-quarters fight. Many people of the time were trained in the use of the sword as a means of defence, especially in urban areas, where duels, street fights, or even riots might require the use of a weapon. The basket hilt provided a secure grip, making it easier to control the sword during such altercations. The backsword was ideal for use in narrow, cramped spaces like alleys or inside homes, where the reach of a longsword might be more difficult to utilise. It was also easier to manoeuvre in a confined setting without risking disarmament due to its hand protection. Duelling and personal combat. The backsword became a common weapon for duels in the 16th and 17th centuries, particularly among gentlemen or those of higher social status. The design of the weapon allowed for both cutting and thrusting, though it was generally used in the cutting mode for more rapid slashing blows. Training with the basket-hilted backsword was often included in the martial education of the time, as it provided a straightforward but effective weapon for personal defence. Fencing and military training. As a weapon associated with civilian combat, the backsword was also part of fencing schools and martial academies that taught techniques for various weapons. Many of the swordsmanship manuals of the period describe how to use a basket-hilted backsword, focusing on cutting, parrying and controlling an opponent's weapon. Use of the basket-hilted backsword in war. Military use. The English basket-hilted backsword was particularly associated with the English Civil War, where it was used by infantrymen, cavalry and militia. The weapon's versatility and hand protection made it a favoured choice for soldiers who needed a practical and durable sword for both hand-to-hand combat and melee engagements. It was often paired with other weapons like pikes, firearms or daggers, and was useful in the chaos of battlefield fighting where quick, short strikes could be more effective than long, wide slashes. The backsword was also used by cavalry units who carried it as a secondary weapon alongside their lances or firearms. The basket hilt helped protect the rider's hand while engaging in close combat with infantry or other cavalry. The combat strategy. The design of the backsword made it particularly useful for cutting through armour in close quarters combat. As the single-edged blade allowed for powerful slicing cuts, soldiers would use overhead strikes, diagonal cuts and thrusts aimed at the opponent's vulnerable spots, such as the face, neck and joints. The basket hilt provided both protection and control, allowing the soldier to wield the sword with greater precision while minimising the risk of injury from a counterattack. It was a weapon that balanced practicality with effectiveness in chaotic military engagements. In addition to its use in England, the basket-hilted backsword was adopted by the Scots, who favoured it for both personal defence and battlefield use. Decline and legacy. The basket-hilted backsword began to fall out of favour with the advent of bayonets in the 18th century and the shift towards firearms as the primary weapon of soldiers. However, the sword still had a lasting influence on later swordsmanship and military tactics. The English basket-hilted backsword was an essential weapon in both civilian and military contexts, offering versatility and protection and combat effectiveness. In civilian life, it served as a practical weapon for self-defense and duelling, while in military combat, it was a reliable tool for soldiers in both infantry and cavalry units. Its influence can still be seen today in the practice of English martial arts and other Scottish martial traditions and ceremonial weapons, ensuring its place as a key part of the history of English and European swords. Thank you.